Welcome to the Wellness Revolution podcast, the radio show all about wellness in your mind, body, spirit, personal growth, sex, and relationships. Stay tuned for weekly interviews featuring guests that have achieved physical, mental, and spiritual health in their lives. If you'd like to have access to our entire back catalog, visit drveronica.com for instant access. And here is your host, Dr. Veronica.
Dr. Veronica, and I am a medical doctor, medical intuitive, bringing you information about your health and wellness every week. I want you to live the best life possible. And sometimes living the best life possible means that you could have an experience that's close to death. Now, let's talk about it. In our culture and society, this is America the beloved, but we're all scared, really, really scared of dying. And I believe that we're scared of dying because we know nothing about death. We're never around death. Now, as a physician, I've been around death a lot. You cannot avoid it. You start your first year of medical school with gross anatomy. And do you know what that means when you have gross anatomy? You are sitting in the lab with 50 bodies because 25 bodies because your medical school class, we dissect actual human bodies, people who donate their body to science. So people like me and all the other doctors that are out there can get a full understanding of what the human body looks like, where everything runs, every nerve, every brain, the heart, the lungs, the lymphatic system, just your toenails, your fingernails, your eyes, your everything. We dissect it and take it apart. And there are kind people who realize that when they leave, they just left behind a suitcase. There's nothing really significant about the suitcase. It looks like a particular person, but their soul has left it. And so therefore, they leave that body to help people learn. And that's a wonderful thing. I actually have a friend, she's somebody who worked with me a while ago, who posted on Facebook that her father had just passed away. There was not going to be a funeral or a memorial service. He donated his body to medical science. And I said to her, that's really a kind, wonderful gift to mankind, to human beings. And it's also a gift that his family respected his wishes to do that. But what about death? We're all afraid of it. We all think there's a conspiracy around it. When people have what's called brain death, families feel like the doctors are just want to pull the plug on their loved one so they can give the organs to somebody else and all that type of stuff, which is not necessarily the case. There are very strict protocols generally in place. Every once in a while you hear something horrific happen, but there are generally strict protocols as to how you decide on these type of things when somebody's dead. And brain death is actually interesting because sometimes people can be brain dead and still be moving around, and people don't understand, well, if they're brain dead, why are they moving and their heart's beating, and what does it actually mean? And, we're showing them lines that aren't doing things in the brain, and everybody's just like, yeah, but my loved one's there and they look this way. But let's talk about the other side of it. We're talking about the body. We're talking about what the people here are going through. We're talking about how we feel about death. But on the other side, there's those people out there who consider themselves very blessed and lucky to have gone through what we call near-death experiences. Now, I have done lots of writing about near-death experiences. So let's talk more. We haven't talked a while about this, about me as an intuitive. Well, as an intuitive, I have the ability to read energy, and not just reading the energy of what's going on here and now. Sometimes I can see the energy of something that's happened in the past. And when I say the past, in another life, in another lifetime, or in the future, something that I perceive is going to happen. Now, future is interesting because we have free will and something that can be changed based on free will. And many of us who go into different types of energy and realities understand that there may be parallel tracks, and there may be more than one soul that's split in the same time, but in different places, in different realms, living different experiences and lives. And this is how we evolved. But near-death experiences, which have been studied, including books written by doctors who have had near-death experience and said, I know heaven is real. And, I'm not talking about necessarily what you believe from a religious standpoint of heaven and hell, but we're talking about the in-between life. And across ages, cultures, languages, people describe their near-death experience where they actually believe or they have died or they've left their body and went into the spiritual realm. And they describe it pretty much all the same way, whether it be a child or an adult, no matter what their religious beliefs were when they're in this lives. And absolutely for them and people around them, these NDEs, near-death experiences, are life transforming. Sometime you meet relatives, sometime you meet your guardian angel or other guides. And by and large, when people have these experiences, they describe, one, the fear of death goes away, but something that is so wonderful. And then when they come back, they understand that they have special work to do. And part of their special work to do is to tell people about their experiences and help other people evolve in different ways. Well, as you can guess it, I have a wonderful guest on today who has had a near-death experience. She is a creativity life coach. Her name is Sue Pighini. Sue, I'm going to spell the last name. I would like you to be able to always find the guests on my show because they're always fascinating, have information for you, and can help you. I'm here talking to you. You're near me. You can always come to me. I can help you in a lot of realms. But I admit that there are lots of experts out there that can help you in certain areas, perhaps better than I can. And I want you to know who those are. So I don't say I'm the only person that can help you and I'm wonderful and good and nobody else is. I admit that we all work as a team and we all evolve together in groups. And in my group of people, in my soul group, I meet wonderful people who have gifts and talents to share with you. Sue Pighini is a creativity life coach, does transformational coaching, is an intuitive healer. So she really is my soul sister. And realize when I say sister, we're both females in this life. But when you're in the spiritual realm, you may appear as a male or a female to somebody who, because it's comfortable to them, but that's not necessarily you are. A soul doesn't have a gender. I've been male, I've been female, I've been all different races. I've died very old. I've died really young. I've had lives where I was poor. I've had lives where I was a wealthy ruler. I had this really fascinating life. Maybe one day we'll talk about this on the radio. When in the 1500s, I was actually a very sought after courtesan. So as I wax on, I would like you to meet Sue Pighini because we're going to talk about her angelic messages and her spiritual encounters. Welcome to Wellness for the Real World, Sue.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Veronica. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to chat with your audience.
So tell us about your near-death experience.
Well, it was a lot of years ago, and at a time when, in fact, people didn't know what a near-death experience was. I was 28. I was hiking in the mountains in Arizona. I went up into a cave with my husband, and we were in the cave. We had gone up to the hills on a motorcycle. And when we got there, it wasn't 5 minutes later, a torrential rain came, and that's what happens in Arizona during the rainy season in August and September. So my husband ran out and said, I have to get down this hill and protect the bike because if it gets drenched, we won't be able to get out of here. So he said, come as fast as you can. So it was a very steep incline. I walked out of the cave, started down the incline, and realized I was going to tumble head over heels. So I looked up in the rain, and I could see this pole, and it was part of a fence, and it was separating the state of Arizona and the military base that we were on at the time. So I put my hand up to pull myself up so that I could make my way down the hill. And the next thing I knew, I was up in the air and I was flat on my face and I had been struck by lightning.
Wow.
Yeah. My clothes melted. In those days, in the olden days, we wore polyester clothing, and my clothes started melting off my body. Now, I'm learning this from my husband, who is now looking up the hill and seeing all the steam come off of my body. So in those seconds, I could feel no pain. I assume I was on the ground. I did not feel that I was in my body. I looked over to my right, and I could see a tunnel that was cloudy, but it was like that was where I was supposed to go. And then a voice came to me. It was soft, but very urgent. And it said, move your legs back and forth before the fire reaches your heart. And it says that you had to go back to your children. And with that, it was like a movie came to me. My son, a picture of my son was on the left, a picture of my daughter was on the right, and I felt so drawn to those children. They were only 3 and 5. And I started moving my legs, as the voice had told me. And I moved my legs, and I moved my legs, and as I moved my legs more, I came back into consciousness. And I was on the ground with mud in my nose and my face and everything, and I felt no pain. There was absolutely no pain whatsoever. So my husband came back up the hill, threw me over his shoulders. He knew what had happened, got me on the motorcycle. We got to a logger's cabin on the military base, still up in the hills, and they were able to get an ambulance that came and saved my life. Now, in those days, again, a lot of years ago, almost 40 years ago when I was 28, it was not accepted. And my husband, when I told him the story of this, what I call an angelic voice, he said, don't mention that to anyone. First of all, I don't believe that's what you heard. I think it was just your mind trying to save your life. So I felt I should just be grateful. I'm here. And I'm not going to mention this to anyone. So I've written this book now. It's my second book, but it's called Expect the Extraordinary, Angelic Messages, Spiritual Encounters, and the Soul of Sky. And the reason I've finally written the book is because after that first event, I've had 2 more life-saving events where I was about to die and another voice came to me, each of those times to save my life, as well as lots of other times that were not life-saving, but I knew that the angels were there. So that has propelled me into writing this book because it is so important to me to have others realize that death is not the end. That's number 1. Number 2 is live your life to the fullest every single day. Live your life to the fullest. And that is really my message. So when I go out and speak in front of groups, or I work with clients or hold workshops or whatever, that's the message that I try to convey. And that is that you don't need to have a near-death experience to realize that life is so fantastic and that you may need to make some changes, you may need to head in another direction, but life is truly spectacular.
Life is truly spectacular. One of the interesting parts of life, people talk about suffering and believe that they're suffering because they've done something bad. And I say to people, you're not suffering because you did something bad. You're suffering because your soul has to evolve. And so part of having an illness or an injury or something really challenging happen in your life is for you to evolve. Now, you went through this major experience. Do you agree with that you went through that challenge so that you would evolve?
Absolutely. And I didn't realize it at the time. What did happen, though, on the other end of the lightning event was that I realized that I had to transform my life. I was in a marriage that was not working. We had tried desperately to make it work, and it was not working. So I ended up ending that marriage and going out on my own with my 2 children. That was the first step. After that, I made lots of other steps. But as I look across my life, each of the angelic events, encounters, if you will, that I talk about in the book are all about taking chances. And it's always about a learning process. We invite many of these events into our lives in order for us to get to another place a higher place, if you will, that allows us to teach others or be part of others' lives or be an example of others' lives, as you are every time you're on the radio. You expand my life and everyone who hears you. And I think that when we understand that life is always about the excitement of transformation, we become more relaxed. There's not as much drama. It's not as if the question we ask ourselves is, why is this happening to me again? And yes, absolutely. It's always about learning and going forward.
Sue, you talk about helping people go from a boring life to a wow life. Now, there are people out there who have trauma and drama and trauma and drama. I'm sure that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about you had trauma and drama and trauma and drama before you had your near-death experience. But I'm sure now your drama is something that's wonderful as opposed to one of those, oh, God, she's doing it again type stories. Tell us about going from boring to wow.
Well, I feel that there's two kinds of drama, just as you said. The first is uninvited, and our souls are going to grow and expand regardless of what we do or don't do. Mm-hmm. So my advice is, let's do all the good things. Let's do all the exciting things to expand your soul, because that's what it's about. That soul wants to expand and learn and take a bigger bite out of the apple, if you will. So when I work with my clients, there are three things that I ask them to do. The first is make a list of how you want your life to look. And it's what you desire. It's not the word want. It's a much deeper word than that. It's the word desire, mm-hmm. and it comes from your heart. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two, you're going to take those things that you desire, and what I suggest to my groups are you go into a magazine or you cut photos out of something you already have, and you make something called a passion board. I'm sitting in my office right now. I'm looking at mine. I'm seeing how many events that I have put on that board have come to pass and have yet to come to pass. And I paste them on a piece of board, not board, but cork board or poster board. And then I happen to frame mine so that the edges don't curl. And every single day that I'm sitting at this desk, I'm looking at that. And I ask myself, have you accomplished or gone after all of those exciting things that are on your passion board? And that keeps me going, okay, what more do I want to do? How do I want my life to look? That's number two. Number three, I have learned that we frequently learn from quietude and reflection. So there is a concept from Abraham Hicks, which you can read about on the web, that says if you concentrate and focus for 17 seconds on a desire that is deep, that desire now comes closer to reality, a greater reality for you. And if you multiply that times 4, you now have 68 seconds. So if you can get to 68 seconds, you are now pulling into your energy a more realistic view of what you truly desire, and that can end up manifesting. So I'm going to give you one small example. I took up riding horses at age 60. I was the oldest in the class when I took my first riding lesson. Everyone else in that class was age 6, and I was 60.
Wow.
And they kept saying to me, these little girls would say, "Are you a grandma? What are you doing in our class?" And it was a very thrilling adventure for me. And the first time I did that, I knew in my heart that I wanted to be connected to a horse. There was something about the energy of a horse that was important to me. Well, now, several years later, I bought my first horse at 65, and I now have a herd. And I'm looking out my window in my office, and I see 5 horses out there, one of whom is a baby, is a little filly. So my dreams of 17 seconds of a horse farm have come true. It's on my passion board. It's in my head. It's in my heart. And that's all positive drama, if you will, versus negative, because the soul is going to expand regardless of what we do. So best that we take a positive, exciting approach to life and be so grateful every day that we are here.
You know, Sue, what I really love about your story is that you were fearless and you went after your dreams, even at an age where people would say you're past your prime. So you're in the classroom with 6-year-olds at 60, and most people would not have the nerve to do that. But yet you have achieved probably rather quickly compared to what most people do. Most people would probably say at 20, I want to have a horse farm, and they would still be waiting for it in retirement. Whereas for you, you've actually manifested that quite rapidly and past the point of time where people would say, oh, you're past your prime and just forget about it, pack it in. Talk to people about never giving up on their aspirations and their dreams, no matter what age they are.
Wonderful. That is that is one of my most exciting topics. And it really is about living fearlessly, regardless of 50, 60, or even 70. I'm 72, and I still ride my horses as often as I possibly can. It's kind of rainy right here on the East Coast these days. But here's what I've learned. As I work with clients around the country, and they come to me, the one thing that I have learned over the last 15 years with this client base is that they're more afraid of living than they are of dying. So death is so far away that people just assume, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. And if you take one small step every single day to make change in your life, change always creates confidence. So if you take one small step, I'm going to drive a different way to the food store. I'm going to go on a different path and chat with a friend I haven't chatted with in a long time. I'm going to approach a difficult situation and get that elephant that's been in the middle of the room out of the way. Every single day, there's going to be a new challenge. And there is a PhD scientist by the name of Bruce Lipton.
Ah, yes.
That has written a fabulous book on something called epigenetics.
Yes. You're talking my language. Go on.
Yeah. My favorite, one of my favorite things. And when I read that book, I've included him in both of my books because I thought his message was so powerful.
It is.
And that is, if you continue to pour in to your brain, into your heart, positive messages about life every single day, those positive messages now circle. They now become the cellular membrane of your cells, and they replicate, they reproduce themselves by the thousands in positivity, not in negativity. So I'm really so devoted to helping people understand that the more positive thoughts you think, the longer you will live. Longevity is a huge factor in positivity, and you will live without drama. You will live in peace and joy. And I'll tell you one more little caveat that I use with everyone. And I'm not even sure where I got this, but probably from someone wonderful like you, who's a medical intuitive. And they said to me, and I work with a lot of intuitives and have over the last many years, they said, Sue, there's only going to be two things that are going to be asked of you when you cross over to the other side. The first is, did you live in joy? And the second is, did you make a difference? So if we follow just those two caveats, those two directions, we will have our lives made. Because if it isn't giving you joy, and if you aren't happy in the environment, in the relationship, in the job that you're in, you need to make a change.
You need to make a change. Listen to what Sue says. Now, I'm going to cap that off. We're coming down to the end of our time with Sue on Wellness for the Real World. And let's talk about how that all relates to your health. Well, you say you have stress. And stress, we know through Dr. Bruce Lipton, who Sue mentioned, his great book, who won several prizes, wonderful work. He's a microbiologist, The Biology of Belief. And he actually showed and brought it to the lay public how you think and feel changes your cellular network and changes whether your body is sick or whether it's healthy. So when you have stress, and in the intuitive world, I call everything related to emotional stress, fear, anger, sadness. Fear, anger, sadness are health harming emotions. And if you do not know how to name them and get rid of them and bring them over to the positive emotions, you will manifest a disease. And ultimately, the disease will cause loss of function, loss of an organ, and loss of life. Now, when you learn how to make that stress and bring it over to the areas of love, joy, and gratitude, love, joy, and gratitude are the health promoting behaviors, emotions, love, joy, and gratitude. You will have a healthy life. So you'll notice anybody who has a long life, they display, they are embodiment of love, joy, and gratitude, with gratitude being higher than love. And so you really want to figure out how to do it. You think your life is tough. That person who's giving you a tough time, get out of it, and then turn around as you're out of it and thank them for challenging you and be able to bring that over to gratitude, love, and joy. They were there to evolve your soul. In your soul life, before you even came in, you agreed with that person that they were going to give you that experience. So rather than blaming other people for your troubles, look right square back at yourself because you asked for it.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more on how to bring wellness into your life, visit drveronica.com. See you all next week. Take care.